Writing a book has almost nothing to do with writing. I know. That sounds completely insane. It's like saying that building a house has nothing to do with hammers and nails. But stick with me for a second, because if you've ever stared at a page like that one, feeling that cold pit of dread in your stomach, you know there's a deeper battle going on. The real work, the hard work of creating something from nothing, doesn't happen when your fingers are flying across the keyboard. It happens in the terrifying silence before that. It's the psychological warfare you wage against yourself just to get the first sentence down. And today, I want to talk about a secret weapon for that war. A tool so powerful, it fundamentally changed the way I approach creativity itself. And it's probably not what you think. So, let me take you back a few years. I had an idea for a new novel. It was one of those ideas that feels electric in your mind, you know? In the shower, it's a masterpiece. On a long drive, it's a bestseller. The characters feel real, the plot twists are genius. But then, you sit down at the computer, and the magic just evaporates. I remember this one night so clearly. It was almost 2 a.m. My apartment was dead silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. I had a lukewarm cup of coffee next to me that tasted more like desperation than caffeine. And on the screen was a single sentence, Chapter 1. And that blinking, mocking cursor. Blink, blink, blink. And the voices started. Not literal voices. You know the ones I mean. The ones in your own head. This idea is derivative. Someone's already done this, but better. You don't even know how the second act is going to work. You're a fraud. Who are you to think you can write a whole book? Just go to bed. Quit. We'll call this voice the inner critic, or maybe the perfectionist demon. It's that part of our brain that's supposed to help us edit and refine. But when we're in the fragile, early stages of creation, it acts like a brutal gatekeeper. It strangles every new idea in the crib because it's not born perfect. For weeks, this was my process. I'd get a tiny spark of an idea. I'd get excited. I'd sit down to explore it. And the inner critic would show up with a fire extinguisher and just shh. Spark gone. I tried everything. I bought fancy notebooks. I used mind mapping software. I went on long, angsty walks to find the muse. I tried the just write anything, even garbage, advice, but my inner critic would just whisper, "See? I told you it was garbage." My problem wasn't a lack of ideas. It was a lack of psychological safety for my ideas to grow. I was both the gardener and the pest, planting a seed and then immediately digging it up to see if it was a good enough seed. Of course, nothing ever grew, and it was around this time that the AI writing tools started getting, well, good. But my first reaction was disgust, revulsion even. A robot can't be creative, I thought. This is the death of art. It's cheating. It's soulless. All the things you've probably thought too. I was a purist, the starving artist, the noble struggle. That was the real path, right? But another week of staring at that blank page, feeling that same old anxiety. Well, nobility doesn't write books. Desperation, on the other hand, desperation gets you to try new things. So one night, with zero expectations, I opened up an AI platform. I told myself I wasn't going to use it to write. No, that was cheating. I was just going to use it to spitball, just to break the silence. I typed in the most basic, half-formed premise for my story. Something like the ending premises. A detective in a futuristic city, where memories can be bought and sold, has to solve the murder of a client who sold his own memory of being killed. I hit enter, and I braced myself for a stream of robotic, nonsensical garbage. And what came back wasn't a masterpiece. It wasn't the final prose of my novel, but it was something. It gave me 10 different potential character names. 5 possible motives for the killer. 3 shocking plot twists I hadn't even considered. A few ideas for the seedy underworld of the memory black market. 9 out of 10 of the ideas were genuinely bad, unusable, cliché. But one of them had a little spark. A name that sounded interesting. A motive that was kind of clever. And that's when the lightning bolt hit me. The breakthrough had nothing to do with the quality of the AI's output. It was about what happened inside my own head. For the first time in weeks, I was looking at ideas without my inner critic screaming at me. Why? Because they weren't my ideas. Think about that. My perfectionist demon had nothing to attack. I didn't come up with that cliché plot twist, the AI did. I didn't suggest that silly character name, the AI did. My ego wasn't on the line. I wasn't in the vulnerable, terrifying position of creating. I was in the powerful, objective position of curating. Suddenly, I wasn't a terrified artist facing a blank canvas. I was a museum curator walking through a gallery full of weird, interesting, and sometimes terrible paintings. And I just got to point and say, I like that one. I can work with that. This is the single greatest psychological benefit of using AI for brainstorming. It's not a co-writer. It's a tireless, judgment-free brainstorming partner. It's like an improv partner whose only job is to say yes and me. What if the detective is an alcoholic? AI. Yes. And what if he's addicted to drinking other people's happy memories to forget his own tragic past? Whoa. Me. What if the killer is his ex-partner? AI. Yes. And what if his ex-partner framed him by implanting a false memory of the crime in his mind? Double whoa. The AI bypasses the inner critic. It outsources the vulnerability of that initial, messy, imperfect ideation phase. It gives you raw material to work with. So your brain can switch from anxious creator to confident editor. It turns the terrifying act of pulling something from the void into a fun game of discovery and combination. And this brings me to the myths that held me back for so long. The first one is the big one. AI will make my writing generic and steal my voice. This used to be my biggest fear. But I realized it's based on a misunderstanding of how to use the tool. If you ask an AI to write your chapter for you, then yeah, it might sound generic. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about brainstorming. The AI is the sous chef. It's just chopping the onions, mincing the garlic, and prepping the ingredients. You are still the head chef. You decide which ingredients to use, how to combine them, how much salt, how much fire. Your voice, your unique flavor, comes from those decisions. The AI just gives you a fully stocked pantry, so you don't have to spend 3 weeks wandering through the desert looking for a single carrot. It liberates your voice by removing the pressure of invention. The second myth is, it's cheating. Let me ask you this. Is using a thesaurus to find a better word cheating? Is using Google to research historical facts for your novel cheating? Is using spell check or Grammarly to fix your typos cheating? Of course not. They are tools. Tools that help us execute our vision more effectively. AI, when used for brainstorming, is the most powerful creative tool invented in our lifetime. It doesn't do the hard work of storytelling, of weaving emotion into prose, of structuring a narrative that makes a reader's heart pound. That is still your job. That is the art. The AI just helps you overcome the single most paralyzing part of the entire process. The blank page. It's not about working less. It's about focusing your creative energy on the parts of writing that are uniquely human. Since I had that breakthrough, my creative process has been transformed. Brainstorming is no longer a source of anxiety and dread. It's my favorite part of the process. It's a game. It's exploration. I can generate dozens of character profiles, chapter outlines, and world-building details in a single afternoon. Not to copy and paste them, but to use them as a launch pad for my own. Better ideas. The inner critic still shows up sometimes, but he has no power anymore. He's just a grumpy old man muttering in the corner while me and my AI partner are busy making magic. I write faster, I finish more projects, and most importantly, the joy is back. The battle isn't about the words on the page, it's about the space between your ears, and giving yourself the permission and the tools to make that space a playground instead of a battlefield is the greatest gift you can give your inner author. Look, I can talk about this all day, but the only way to really understand the psychological freedom this gives you is to see it in action and try it for yourself. If you want to see how I'm actually using AI to write full books and connect with other authors doing the same thing, check out my school group. It's free to join. You'll also get access to the tool I personally use, new.instaauthor.com. Links are in the description. See you inside.